Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Good morning.
Yes.
Eunice,
Good morning. We can hear you.
Okay.
can you hear me?
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. My name is Jane. Can you hear me? Everybody. The attendees, the participants. Okay, my name is Jane. I'm the project manager from Wandieville Media. Jane. Can you hear me? So thank you for registering. Thank you for
Billy, how are you?
I'm fine.
I'm good.
So, it's been a long time.
Very long time, yeah.
Anyway,
My guys have been in extension 2.
yeah, I'm aware.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
But I need your Daniel to see me within the week.
Daniel, yes, okay.
The time, then we will talk.
Okay, because I need to come over to see them.
Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
For registering and joining us on this webinar. So please, for the attendees, anybody, if you have questions, there's a question and answer box down there. You just send the questions there and we'll attend to it. And at the end of the webinar, there will be a survey. Please fill the questions, fill it out so that we can know how to go about the next webinar. So thank you very much for coming once again. I'll hand over to the moderator, Ms. Yewande Cousin.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, morning. Thank you for joining us for the investment in the oil palm value chain in Edo State webinar. We really appreciate your time today. So I'll give you a brief introduction about Wandieville Media. We're a marketing, communication, and public relations company focused on African agriculture. We work with clients based on their target market. We have worked with several stakeholders in the agriculture industry in different African countries. Today's webinar is a partnership with Edo State Investment Promotion Office, ESIPO. We'll be focusing on investments in the oil palm value chain, what the investment opportunities are, and hear from other players operating in the value chain. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Kelvin Owabi. He's the head of the Edo State Investment Promotion Office. Welcome, Mr. Kevin. Mr. Kevin, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Good morning. All.
Good morning.
Okay. Yewande, am I on?
Yes, you are. And if you have any questions, please put it in the
Okay.
Q&A session, not the chat box.
Okay.
And we'll go. Mr. Kevin, you're on.
Okay. Good morning, participants and the guests. My name is Kevin Waibi. I head the Edo State Investment Promotion Office, also known as ESIPO. Today, we're going to be looking at the investing in the oil palm value chain. For Edo State Investment Promotion Office, we are a facilitation agency that was set up by this present administration, and we look out for investors for the state, and also, most importantly, attend to investors' inquiries. We ensure that we enable the business environments in the state, and if investors are having any kind of challenge, we also attend to that. We are kind of mediate between, I would say, ministries, departments, and agencies and investors. We ensure to see that investors' inquiries are attended to timely also. We also work towards what we call the World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking to ensure that the state is more competitive in terms of the ease of doing business, and to see that at that ranking, that the indicators we work towards it. And as you know, there are 4 key indicators which the ease of doing business is very, they look into, and we're looking at registration of businesses, looking at permits. How do you get your permits? How do you get your contracts in terms of you have justice system? So I'll just quickly say that in the state already, we had worked on most of this. I'm sure you've, for those that are just joining us, we have the geographical information system, which was established about 2 years ago, that ensures that investors can quickly get their certificate of occupancy. We have also worked with the Corporate Affairs Commission to ensure that businesses, most especially investors that possibly want to register their business, also can get it timely. Recently, we came up with a small claims court, which also is to see that if you have issues with your businesses within 60 days, you should be able to get some of remediation in court. I think that we did that also to ensure that cases that has to do with businesses are not still they are not in the same court with cases, criminal cases. Also, we have also ensured that when businesses have issues with communities, that they are attended to with the necessary MDAs, and to ensure that at that time that there's any problem, we can wade into such problems and ensure that the businesses have seamless operations in the states. I know there must be one or two. I can see one or two will say there's an ongoing process. We hope to be able to strengthen the process. Very soon, the state would be. There are a few policies that are going to be passed very soon, just to ensure that we strengthen that process. Thank you very much. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin. Thank you. Next on the list is we have our keynote speaker, Mr. Kevin. Are we running a little bit late on that?
Yes, the governor is running a bit late on that. So I think.
Okay, so go ahead with the panelists and we'll introduce them. Today we have Mrs. Injide Iwambuku.
Mr. Kelvin, I can read the governor's speech if you don't mind.
Okay. So the commissioner for Agric is here with us also.
Okay. So Mr. Adebiri, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And good morning, all. My name is Richard Uyi Edebiri. I'm the Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources, Edo State. As we all know, campaigns are in top gear, so Mr. Governor is unavoidably absent, even though we expect he joins us maybe as the program continues if he's free. But in the meantime, I will just read his address to all of us. Once again, I want to welcome all of you to this program, to this forum. I think it's very timely, it's very, very important. We would all agree that palm oil is of strategic importance as it's used in the production of more than half of the products sold in the supermarkets globally. The global palm oil market was valued at $36.7 billion in 2019, global demand was estimated at 74.6 million tons in 2019 and projected to register an average yearly growth of 10.3% from 2016 to 2019. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria, if Nigeria had maintained its market dominance in the palm oil industry, the country would have been earning approximately $20 billion annually from the cultivation and processing of palm oil as at today. Edo State government is the highest oil palm producing state in the south-south geopolitical zone of Nigeria, with the most conducive soil for agricultural purposes. It would be of urgency to quickly tap these latent resources available at our disposal to make Edo State more economically productive for our people. By November 2019, the Edo State Oil Palm Program, ESIPO, was launched with existing and potential oil palm investors in attendance, as well as various associations of smallholder oil palm farmers, government officials, and Central Bank of Nigeria. Following the launch of the ESIPO, the implementation office was set up to facilitate acquisition of land in the Edo State by investors. The aim of the oil palm program in our dear states include the following. One, to increase revenue by diversifying the income base of the states. Once we have the plantations, Edo State can easily generate as much an additional 500 million naira in taxes, revenue, and partnership with oil palm plantations. To create employment for our youths, as much as 40,000 additional jobs are expected to be added, hence remarkably reducing unemployment in the states. Give small-scale farmers within Edo State the opportunity to participate in the oil palm value chain by setting up outgrower partnership between these farmers and oil palm plantations. Enhance development of communities where these palm plantations are in. The theory of change here is that this organization will create some infrastructure like roads, water, electricity, some of which are public goods and would enjoy also by the community once they are in operation. Some of these organizations participate in corporate social responsibilities, e.g. schools, classroom innovation, provision of healthcare services, and means of transportation for individuals within their communities. To help reforest our degraded areas, the program is strengthening the Forest Commission to ensure that 10% of our land allocated for oil plantation will be reforested. The Edo State government set up the Oil Palm Implementation Committee, which has a mandate to achieve these goals and encourage the participation of private investors. The committee started the process of lot verification from the report of last year's ground truthing exercise that produced potentially 120,000 hectares of land available for this purpose. So far, about 60,000 hectares of land have been identified as unencumbered and ready for allocation in the transparent process that encourages equal participation by indigenes from the private sector in the oil palm plantation outgrower system. Available land will be allocated in units of 5,000 hectares for large private investors and 50,000 hectares for outgrowers farmers as more forest reserves are audited. We are confident that we can achieve our targeted 120 hectares of land for the oil palm plantation. As this program progresses, the Edo State government is very confident that immediate and long-term gains of this program would begin to be realizable in terms of growth and economic development. It is also expected that once the oil palm production commences, we would explore more downstream participation in value addition like milling, refining, fractionation, and packaging, and the development of numerous byproducts of oil palm processing like palm fatty acid distillates, palm stearin, palm oil, etc., etc. As agriculture is one of our most cardinal pillars for development in our dear states, you would all agree with me that there is need to be a significant partnership between the states and private sector investors who also include international investors who will bring investment and managerial skills to the states. This partnership is expected to transition into a public-private partnership where the government assures of land and security to the investment, while the private sector invests capital and managerial skills to develop a world-class agricultural industry that would be beneficiary to us all and generations yet unborn. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the speech from His Excellency. So officially, we want to commend all our participants in this, and I wish all of us a fruitful deliberations. Thank you, Yewande.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard Edebiri. Thank you for that beautiful speech. So we're going to go ahead and I'll introduce the panelists. Today we have Mrs. Njide Nwabuku, representing she's the head of Oil Palm Commodity Working Group at the CBN. She's representing Mr. Yila Yusuf, the Director of Development Finance at CBN. We also have Mr. Richard Edebiri, which he just spoke. He's the Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources at Edo State. We have Dr. Celestine Ikwenebo, is the Executive Director for Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research, NIFOR. We have Mr. Felix Nwabuko, the MD of Fresco PLC. We have Mrs. Wilma Agwele, founder and CEO of Wilhabi Investments.
Wilbahi, oh my God.
Sorry, Wilbahi Investments. I'm so sorry about
Yes.
that.
And Miss Wilma Agwele, not Mrs.
Miss Wilma Agwele,
Yeah.
founder and CEO of Wilbahi Investments.
Yeah.
I'll change that.
Good morning.
We have Mr. Billy Gansa, is the Agri Coordinator for Okomu Oil Palm PLC. And have Mr. Chuka Modi, MD and CEO for LLA. We also have Mr. Temitope Fatumbi, Program Officer of IDH. He's representing Dr. Chris Okafor, the head of IDH Sustainable Trade Initiative. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and start. Yes, thank you. We'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
Mrs. Njide Nwabuko from CBN, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning and thank you, Yewande. Good morning, participants.
Morning.
Morning.
So oil palm is one of the 10 commodities CBN is focusing on for the next 5 years. How is the central bank supporting the value chain, and what intervention funds are available for the oil palm value chain?
Thank you, Yewande. First, let me quickly state that the central bank is intervening in real sector, particularly agriculture, to achieve economic objectives of revenue diversification, forex conservation, attaining self-sufficiency in food production and industrial raw material production, and then employment generation. That said, under its Oil Palm Development Initiative, the bank is committed to supporting oil palm majors, SMEs, and smallholder farmers, and indeed other actors across value chain processes, particularly through the provision of affordable finance. By affordable, we mean single-digit interest rates. And these are long-term, some are short-term facilities, some are long-term facilities. And these are available across value chain processes. Indeed, we have available interventions for oil palm actors to access. We have the Real Sector Support Facility, RSSF, the DCRR option, which is available to large ticket oil palm transactions because the tenure is long. It's available for up to 10 years with 3 years moratorium. Now, there are other ones, the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme, which is also for large ticket transactions. Although the gestation for that is about 5 years, 5 to 7 years, is not as long as the RSSF. And we have the ABP. ABP is a shorter term intervention, but smallholder farmers can access it for maintenance of their plantations, pending when to increase yield, output and yield from their plantation. We have the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme. This is facilitated by NISA Microfinance Bank. It's also available for smallholder farmers that wish to engage in nursery development, maintenance, also for maintenance of plantations, and for construction of mini mills for oil palm milling. So we have a number of interventions for various value chain actors. In a broader context, the bank has so far disbursed about 480 billion across various commodities. But for oil palm in particular, the bank has disbursed about 42 billion naira, particularly to oil palm majors and SMEs. One of the key focal area is for plantation development, because the bank is committed to supporting firms to engage in backward integration policy. Now, plantation development will give us the inputs required to feed the mills for oil palm production in Nigeria. Having said that, it is important to note that some of those companies that have been funded, about 3 of them, which have accessed about 60% of oil palm funds, are located in Edo State. And I must commend Edo State for its intentional commitment towards supporting oil palm value chain processes. We're aware of the Edo State Oil Palm Policy Program, which was launched recently. Edo State as well has been supportive in terms of land allocation to investors. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you, Yawande.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Waboko. Thank you. Please, if you have any questions, don't forget to put it in the Q&A chat box. Not the chat box, the Q&A question box. Next, we have Mr. Richard Edebiri, the Commissioner of Agriculture. So, Mr. Richard, one of the major concerns for investors is the change of government and inconsistency in policy. How do we ensure any change of government doesn't result into withdrawal of land or just wasted investment? How do you guarantee investment in the state?
Okay, thank you very much. We all know Edo State's position in the oil palm value chain. You know, we are very, very positioned to ensure that sustainability is guaranteed. You know, as a state, so what we did, because we understand that oil palm is a crop that is grown on vast area of land. So we wanted to de-risk the sector. Now, in doing that, we made sure one of the major problems would be investors who would be land acquisition. So that's why we set up that office to help in cushioning that effect. Now, in doing that, we also went further to mitigate against some of the pending issues that may arise should there be any change in government. So that is why all the investors, any land that's been acquired by any investor is being protected by their C of O. His Excellency, the Executive Governor, has agreed to sign C of O for any land that has been given to any investor. And with the land is being specific for agricultural activities for the oil palm. We're also in the process of signing into law through the State House of Assembly to delineate the land from the forest reserve as being sufficiently degraded to be allocated for oil palm. So any investor that is being given any land in Edo State, they are rest assured that it will come with a C of O, and we have a law to back it up that it is not in our forest land, it's been reserved for this purpose. So this also falls within the classification by the RSPO on the best practice for international oil palm farming. So that is what we have done so far.
Okay. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm sorry I'm coming late into the call. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Excellency.
Yes,
Good morning, Excellency.
Yes, I'm on the campaign trail. So I just thought, now that I have network for a few minutes, let me come in and thank all of you for this webinar on our oil palm initiative, and to just reassure will-be investors that this is a commitment of the Edo State government to restore Edo to the prime, position as the main oil palm hub for the country. So today we have the largest number of estate farms in the state, and we're using that as an advantage to expand what is availability of land for oil palm. So as you've been told, we have delineated forest land, hitherto forest land that's been highly degraded, and we are now we have finished the ground truthing and the demarcation and survey of these parcels. They come to about 100,000 hectares, and we're in the process of allocating the first lot to designated investors. A lot of work has gone on in the last couple of years. It may seem slow, but from our experience, we thought we should do it right because we had situations where land was offered to new investors and they could not access such land. So this time around, we've taken the pains to ensure that we acquire the land. Well, since it's our land, we are not acquiring, but we ensure that we make the land available on the basis of best international practices, ensuring that proper community action has been taken and the proper acquisition processes are followed. In terms of helping will-be investors access capital, we have aligned and we're working with the central bank under this program to get central bank to support will-be investors with a special oil palm funding to develop the sector. Finally, in terms of titling, we are fast-tracking the process. As soon as the allocations are completed, then the documentation, the title documents will be issued promptly. But there are other issues, other areas of infrastructure we're still discussing, which we're prepared to collaborate with investors on, ensuring access routes to the allocations. And then finally, the issue of security, where we're working with the local governments and the security agencies to ensure that our security architecture in the state covers the allottees and the areas that have been allotted. So those are in a broad view what we have done to date. We are very optimistic that particularly in the post-COVID-19 economy that has to evolve in Nigeria, we are glad that we took these early initiatives, and we are ready and open to work with both existing and will-be investors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, Excellency.
In a very short time. Thank you for taking some of your time to join us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll go ahead. Thank you very much. Good luck. So we're going to go ahead with the panelists. And now the next question is from Dr. Celestine Equinebo. NIFOR, the Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research, has been around for over 80 years. You have worked with the majority of the stakeholders in the value chain. For investors looking into different segments of the value chain, nursery, primary production, small-scale milling, what are the initial necessary steps to take in regards to sourcing planting materials, training, and just learning about the value chain?
Okay, thank you very much, Wandy, and thanks to panelists and participants. Well, you already said we've been around for 80 years. We've had our challenges along the line. But basically, we are a public institution. That means we're available to everybody. Anybody who is available wants to take advantage of our services or ask for our services. We offer training, for instance, to participants, that is to investors. We also offer training to small-scale holders and individuals who want training in various aspects of seedling production, plantations maintenance, management, harvesting, and processing. And for the smallholders, we also have designed and fabricated, and we also fabricate, we still fabricate small-scale processing equipment for smallholders. As you know, Nigeria will have a large segment of smallholders. Smallholders really dominate the industry. And so it's also good that we cater for them. We cater for all segments of players in the sector. So for smallholders, we have that facility available for them for processing. As for seeds and seedlings, they are available once we are given sufficient notice. And now we have actually primed ourselves up now to be able to face off their previous challenges and be able to meet seed demand as when due. And we have also begun looking at our seeds and ensuring ability to control that respect. So to that extent, we are available to investors as a public institution. We do not discriminate when it comes to take our services. So we're open to the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kwenebo. So how do investors or stakeholders access NIFO? Can you tell us that?
We're available. First, we have stations across the country. For instance, in Lagos, we have a station in Badagry, which is basically for coconut. We also do oil palm there, and then we can be accessed by farmers who are around the ask questions around. And we're on the internet. You can access us via our website, and then our phone numbers are there. Farmers can reach us from there. And we have stations in Akwa Ibom, for instance, but in Edo State in particular, we are basically in NIFO here, which is in Benin City, which most people know around the location. So we are very accessible. It's quite easy to access us. You can reach us via email or by phone calls. And we're a phone call away from anybody, really. I think that's what I would say. We're open.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Mr. Kwenebo. Next, we have the next section is from Mr. Felix Nwabuko, MD of Presco. Presco is one of the leading oil palm companies in Nigeria, and you're involved in all the segments of the value chain, working directly and indirectly with about 8,000 employees. For smallholder farmers between 5 to 10 hectares of primary production or any other investors in the value chain, is there an opportunity to get an offtake agreement or market with Presco? What would this involve and what would this require?
Okay, thank you. This is Felix. Yeah, Presco certainly has been a long player in the industry. Presco will be 29 by next month. Will be celebrating its 29th year in Edo State in the business. Although a lot of the players in Presco have spent much more years than that in terms of experience. As we are structured now as Presco, we are self-sufficient in terms of the fresh fruit bunches that we mill in our facilities at the moment. But nevertheless, with the current discussions which CBN has initiated, with respect to developing that segment of the industry, which is the smallholder agro group. So there have been discussions. And in the future, I recall that some mappings are already being made, to try to map smallholders, outgrowers around these areas. I've had discussions with the likes of Okumu on trying to do that mapping in order to be able to go into that to give effect to what CBN is discussing. We also have initiated, as a member of POFON, not too long ago, we initiated a discussion. We had, following from CBN's initiative, where we said, okay, we can get together as major players in the industry to assist in developing that particular segment, because we realize, and we do know from experience, that it's not, it is something that really needs to be properly structured in order to make it work and make it sustainable and have the smallholder farmers themselves benefit from that activity. So we have initiated, we did write to CBN sometime last year that the oil palm majors as a body are prepared to collaborate with CBN and work with them in order to put in place a well-structured smallholder agro program. As a matter of fact, the activity that took place in Edo State last year, when Edo State launched their oil palm program, where CBN was available and farmers were available, it was somehow initiated by that letter to CBN, and then in discussion with Edo State, then we executed that. So the answer, what I'm saying here is that as an oil palm major, we are already investing our time in helping, working together with other players in the industry. And CBN as the one that wants to drive this part of the value chain to establish for Nigeria a credible and sustainable smallholder agro program. In addition to that, going on right now, in one of our facilities in Rivers State, which is SIAT Nigeria Limited, we're already working with smallholder outgrowers programs in that sector. Also a CBN-driven thing. Meetings are already going on they have identified a number of people that are interested in that space. And we are now going forward to have a meeting with them and do that and also assist them in structuring it and play the role of the off-taker for that. So that's what we're doing. So first and foremost, to ensure, it's very important. Yes, we are all talking of the smallholder and outgrower, but what I will say today, in that segment of the value chain today, it needs structuring. It needs efforts to ensure that whatever is done is sustainable. So that's the first role that we are playing with some other majors. And then in Rivers State, where the people are putting themselves together, we're already beginning, we have open discussions with them to help them, to guide them, and also positioning ourselves as off-takers in that region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wabuko. Thank you. Next, we have Miss Wilma Aguele. Ms. Aguele, you have been operating in the agriculture sector for over 30 years, and you've operated in the oil palm value chain for almost 25 years or so. Can you share with us your journey so far, some of the positive, negative challenges, and some of the opportunities available in the value chain, and why invest in Edo State?
She's on mute.
Mr. Aguela, are you with us?
Our system is muted.
Mute. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Yewande, for giving me this opportunity to speak and to be among distinguished personalities from the oil value chain. Well, it's been a story of excitement and pressure and also depression. Edo State, to be honest, is a peaceful state. We are agrarian and industrial and also entrepreneurial community. So it's a little bit painful when you have all the time in the world to do right by yourself and your community, and events and third-party interferences, other institutional interferences halt your progress. Because quite frankly, Edo State used to be among the top states in Nigeria when we were even considered first in education, first in industry, first in everything. But now we are almost like being swiped into oblivion by poverty and lack of vibrant economic activity, except some few large cooperative or corporate bodies. So for me, it's been a journey of, I knew since I was in secondary school and farming with my grandparents in the village called Ewohimi, Eastern South local government, that agriculture was going to take us out of poverty. But how we were going to achieve that with minimal awareness, even by the people of the state, that this is one area that we should have focused while focusing on education. But you can't just be reading without having economic support for your livelihood, for your community, for yourself, for your family. So going into palm oil was something that was a given, because I grew up in a place where everybody was engaged in farming, mother, grandfather, children, everybody. So it was not a new thing for us. And I knew I was going to end up there because our climatic condition is suitable. Access to land was also, well, community land was there. But growing up, after I came back from university, I realized that, how did we get shifted from being focused on agriculture to other things that were not so relevant to our own personal survival? I don't know how that happened, but for some reason, all the young people, all the middle-aged people, and even the elders don't want to see agriculture as a sustainability, a way to make a living for yourself and for your family anymore. Everybody was out chasing government, everything, including me, yours truly. And I think it's also a result of not having the support enabling environment. All the people we know that have been long, painfully patient doing agriculture are poor, tired, don't have a lifestyle. So why? And then of course, there's no water, there's no light, there's no, I mean, like we say in my village, OBFR, you're still doing bush runs. So everybody kind of wanted to go live in Benin or Lagos or Port Harcourt. So how do we get ourselves out of this? Is putting infrastructure, basic infrastructure. That's what we're asking. And all of us who are hogging the urban centers, we go home. Because the only reason why majority of the Nigerian people who could be thriving by themselves under the glorious sun of God are not in the villages or the rural setting or the peri-urban setting is because of lack of infrastructure. So the day you put road, water, and electricity, believe you me, agriculture will take off like a rocket. And oil palm particularly, because the generational wealth crop, it's not a crop that, okay, after 3 months or 1 year, it's gone. Once you seed from your sprouted nuts to when the tree mature, in depending on the variety you crop, between 3 and 7 years, and you start getting commercial fruit. In the next 40 years, you're pretty much able to feed yourself and your grandchildren, and all from this one singular crop that is a crop that has multiple use and multiple advantages, whether it's industrial application, you can, whether it's food, edible oil, palm is number one, whether it's for other commercial purpose or biofuel, there's everything involved in the palm tree. So for us, and I will tell you this sincerely, because I've been looking at other countries in the world to say, okay, what's the reason why we are not really totally focused until now? Thank God for now that the CBN and the government and both state and federal decide to focus on agriculture. Is when I read on a statistical on YouTube that even Indonesia made $200 billion in 2019 just from selling palm oil and its derivatives to the rest of the world. And you're talking about 3.8 billion Southeast Asians that came to Nigeria and collected seeds, and we all know the story. The rest is history. So how come Indonesia can even topple Malaysia, that everybody thinks is the top dog? Indonesia is now number one in palm and its derivative. What is Nigeria doing? That's what I was saying. Oh my God, I got to tell the government, how much do you get out of oil? I mean, like petroleum fossil fuel, that everybody wants to kill themselves, and all of us were focused on petroleum. We have to be involved in petroleum, otherwise you can't survive as a people, as a country, as an entrepreneur. But I found out that palm oil, that single tree that God made, and that gives you shelter, that gives your generational family members who have money, if you will just be patient a little bit, for 3 years is not a long time in the life of a human being. And then you can intercrop other semi-annual vegetables or other tubers that can sustain you while the tree is maturing. And with the way they've treated even some of the seedlings now, in 3 years, with the Costa Rican variety or the NIFO variety, you can actually start having early maturing instead of waiting 7 years, which is everybody is afraid of. Nobody, even the bankers, nobody wants to be involved in palm or tree crops in Nigeria because it takes too long. And besides, what if fire enter? What if rain don't fall? What if? There are so many what ifs. But we all have to also think in the positive. There's not, everything has a risk. So getting involved in the palm value chain, I would advise everybody, it's your best retirement in terms of like just look at the Naira now, look at the devaluation. If you have a palm plantation, there's nothing, you will just be going up and up, because into the foreseeable 100 years, and I'm willing to share all this data and statistics that I've been quietly gathering, because you can't go invest in something you don't know anything about. And then what are your competitors doing? Into the next 100 years, palm oil and its derivative is going to be number one for human sustainability in terms of edibility, industrial application, commercial application, and even pharmaceutical. Vitamin A for our eye health, palm butter for culinary health, or people who have heart problems, or if you have atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of your arteries. They say a teaspoon of palm oil will dissolve all of those things. You don't have to use statin drugs and all those other made in the lab stuff that kill people, right? So for me, I will advise even the old palm trees, we can get timber, or we can use it for construction, parquet floor tiles. Of course, in our forest, we have trees that are like way older than 50 years. And of course, nobody's going to be climbing those tall trees anyways. So when you mow them down, you can convert those, plane them, and they become building materials, construction, parquet floor tiles, and other industrial uses, or household utensils, cups, plates, whatever, while you regenerate the more hybrid or the newer variety of seedlings. So for me, I will advise everybody to please come invest in Edo State. We are not a state of gangsters or kidnappers or banditry. By the grace of God, may it be so. And honestly, the state government, from everything I'm hearing, and also NIFO, they are very supportive now. Unlike in the past, when we had so much drama in terms of convincing people that look in this direction and don't try and make all your youths run off to Italy or Spain or something, chasing greener pasture. Do you know how many multimillionaires would have made if the state government, when we first started many years ago, they just didn't get it, that everybody cannot be engaged by government, and everybody cannot work in the banks, or everybody cannot be engaged by Shell and the oil companies. But if you don't give your young people and your women access to credit, they really know what to do. They are entrepreneurial by birth, it's in their DNA. But if you don't have financial inclusion and you can't feed yourself, of course you're going to try and run off. So we have to reverse the trend. And I thank God that now everybody is getting a grip on the fact that even Europe needs help to feed Europe. We can use our best climatic conditions, access to land, peaceful nature of Edo people, and the fact that we have many streams and rivers and creeks. And we are also part of an ecosystem where the rains fall without us having to sweat irrigation and pay expensive water bills, like Israel or other countries that are in semi-desert or arid conditions. We really need to focus on oil palm and its derivative as a source of income. And I'm talking from seeds. Even you doing nursery, just being a seed company on behalf, like the NIFO does the research, gives you the sprouted dose, you nurse it. You can even concentrate on doing that for other farmers. There are so many other aspects of the oil palm that you can make instant money. Like Nigerians who think, I can wait 1 year, just be a seed replication company on behalf of NIFO or Okumu or Presco, who have their seed nursery. You can just start to resell those viable seeds to other farmers and then teach them even how to nurse. That's a business by itself. Then you're talking about the transport logistics of moving the fresh fruit bunches from the forest or the farm location to the processing site. That's also a viable business. Then you talk about those who have to provide the packaging material, whether glass jars or plastic, BPA-free plastics to harness the liquids. Then you talk about further downstream by converting them to stearine, olein, and I don't know what else, butter, peanut butter, whatever. Even pharmaceutical, making vitamin A pills or liquids or tincture that people who have eye health problems can live off of palm. And then, of course, competing with the big boys in Asia, Nigeria is just going to have to do it because we have the population, we have the hard work, and we have a government that is focused rightly now to support agribusiness value chain. Thank you. Wow. And of course, I will say this as a last resort. Please get us away from commercial banks. You need to have a special fund to support primary production, not just oil palm. Because, you know, if you keep focusing Nigerians on short-term financial institutions that only really have short-term money, they cannot give you patient capital. You need a financial institution. I don't know what you want to call it, venture funds, whatever. Please separate us from the commercial bank in terms of those who are engaged in primary production of raw materials of all kinds. That's the only way you're going to have food security or tree crop security or agroforestry, whatever. You really do need to focus. The CBN must remove us from having to go through commercial bank process to access credit for those who want to grow trees as a business. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much, Ms. Aguela.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your experience. You are definitely the plug. Thank you. Next, we have
Sorry about that.
Next, we have Mr. Billy Gansa from Okomo Oil Palm. Nigeria loses about $500 million annually to oil palm importation. This shows there's a huge demand gap in the local market. What are the available opportunities for small-scale investors without the high capital to operate in the value chain in Edo State? Mr. Billy?
Billy, you're on mute. Your system is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, all. I'm coming from Okomu. I have a lot of things to say, but I will start with your question. What I can tell you is this: oil palm farming is demanding but rewarding. If you get good quality planting material and plant according to scientific principles, you are looking at yields of between 15 to 20 hectares, 20 tons of oil palm per hectare in Nigeria. In our estate, we get blocks which give us up to 25 tons, which is competitive enough to compare to Asia. Yes, climatically we might be a bit behind, but we are closing the gap slowly. So there is room for that. When it comes to smallholder farmers, the biggest problem they have is the fact that they need to invest in something that they don't have the income for, or sorry, the funding for. So they need source of cheap funds. What I mean by cheap funds is in quotes. In other words, they need funding which is long-term, has low interest rate, like what the CBN is doing, but I would want it even lower in terms of the interest rate, because in all my calculations I've been making, I noticed that most farmers can look at 5% for them to get something better out of it. The reason is that they don't determine the price of the product. All of us in the whole supply chain do not determine price of the product. It is a commodity. Therefore, the biggest problem we have is how to control our cost. If your investment cost is so high, it makes it difficult. So coming back to the farmer, there is a big opportunity for farmers to invest in oil palm, anywhere from 5 hectares to 10 hectares to 50 hectares. One of the issues is to do with processing of crop, and Mr. Felix Nwaboko just gave details of how they are going to go about it. We have in Okomu gone a bit further than what Presco has done, but basically all the discussions points he brought up, we are in line with it. The only thing I will say is that we at Okomu have already invested enough to cover. We have 2 sites, and all the 2 sites are within Edo State. And one of them, we have moved the processing capacity by 50%. And we also are building a new oil mill. So we expect that we will be able to process up to 150,000 tons of FFB from farmers within the next 2 years. So we have already written a concept note on how we will go about a smallholder scheme. But like Mr. Felix Iwabuko said, there should be a proper structure to it. And that is where we are looking at to go. So I would want you to know that Okomu is prepared to buy crop from farmers, because if they invest, we are prepared to buy from them. We are also working strongly to get a lot of the farmers identified already in our area. And we believe that we are available to help them improve their investment if they are really interested in going to farming. So far as Edo State is concerned, Okomu is ready to help in that area. I have other things to discuss about, but I would prefer that we talk about it in another time. Within this same forum, but another time. I don't want to mix all the rest of my contribution together.
Mr. Billy, thank you. But I wanted you to add, what kind of spec do farmers or primary producers need for offtake agreement from Okomu? Can you add that to it?
Can you say what?
What kind of specification or requirement do producers need for Okomu offtake? Is there a specification? Is there an agreement?
Well, we like I told you earlier on, we are interested in that, and we have already met 3 farmer cooperatives within the state who have expressed interest. We have visited their farms. We do know that the kind of crop we have in the state is made up of different types of fruit types, and Celestine would bear me out. We have a lot of material which does not produce the kind of oil we want in terms of the oil yield, not in terms of the quality. And we are busy discussing with the farmers, and we'll come to a pricing arrangement. So yes, we are ready to go along with the farmers, and we have gone a long way already. Like I said, we've written a concept note on how to organize the smallholder to the CBN, and they're already aware of our intentions. We even put in some numbers to show how it can be done. But we on our own, before everything takes off, there are people who have farms already in the system, and we've started engaging with them. We've not started buying any crop yet, but we intend to do that. Possibly before the end of October, we will start doing that. When it comes to an agreement, we would have an agreement with other farmers in which everybody's role will be specified, and then we will take it from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Billy. Please put the questions in the Q&A box. I see some questions in the chat box. Please, we need it in the Q&A box. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Chuka Modi, CEO of Ella Lakes. Mr. Modi, Ella Lakes is one of the new operators in the value chain. For a value chain that is known to be capital intensive, why oil palm? And what are the other opportunities in the value chain? But for people that don't want to physically be in the farming process, what are the other investment opportunities?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, that's very true. Ella Lakes is one of the new companies in the sector. Okomu and Presco have been leading the way for a considerable period of time. And I think it's partly the example of these companies that show us the nature of the size of the opportunity that can be exploited. I think 2 things, because we're on the capital markets. It's easier and a cheaper direct route to fundraising than going through the banking sector due to the high interest rates, which is not the fault of the banks. It's the consequence of the high inflation rate. So that's a macro problem that needs to be sorted out in terms of the economy rather than a problem from the banks. So we're in the capital markets because it's easier and cheaper to raise financing than through the banking sector. Secondly, we're also looking at the CBN facilities, which are developmental facilities, in order to develop our business. But I mean, primarily we're in oil palm because, as Ms. Laguelia of Wilmar said earlier on today, it's a long-term, multi-generational, high-margin business, which, if done properly, as we've seen Okomu and Presco so far, one can be very, very successful. It's a globally priced sector, and so you're exposed to the rest of the world. The income is denominated in US dollars or linked to the US dollar, indexed to the dollar. So it's very important for us that it's also a business which, all our OPEX is, well, not all, but most of our OPEX is in Nigeria. So it makes sense to engage in a business which, one, can have significant margins, and two, can be scaled up significantly. Because I think that's a primary consideration for us, that we can achieve a great degree of scale just within Nigeria. I think that answers the first question as to why. And then if you look at the import differential from Nigeria's current account balance perspective, from an import substitution perspective, we could save the country a few $100 million a day just by bridging the gap between the basic crude palm oil we import and the amounts that we produce and consume locally. So that's a significant incentive to actually be in the market and be in the sector. Now, as to the second part of your question, which is, what other parts of the value chain could one possibly invest in? Because investing in primary production is very expensive. That's capital intensive. That's true. I think there are a variety of parts of the value chain that one could invest in. The services side, providing services to the major producers. So Okomu have suppliers of trucks, Okomu have suppliers of tractor, they have suppliers of services to them. You could say the same for Presco. So I think there are a lot of ancillary opportunities along the value chain for the larger producers, that people who don't want to get directly involved in the sector in primary production can also engage in, because they're around the core aspect of palm oil production, but their services in the services sector. So I think that there's a significant universe or ecosystem around primary oil palm production that is available for investors to get in on a smaller scale, because they don't have the required capital for primary production of oil palm on a large scale. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. But I also wanted you to add, people that are wanting to invest like in the stock market, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, I think that there are also two other ways of doing that. So one, if you feel this is an attractive business, you could go and start it by yourself, but it's capital intensive. You could go, and I'd say get a collective together, a cooperative, and try and do that, which is one way of mirroring the sector, but that's also capital intensive. But I think a third way of investing in the sector is, and that's the opportunity we try to provide by being listed on the capital markets, is by buying shares in a listed company. So you become investing in a proxy for the sector. So I think one way of trying to mirror the success of the major companies in the sector would be to buy their equity. So Okomu is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Presco is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and that's one of the primary reasons that LLX is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So equity is available for the public to participate in the sector by buying shares. So that's one way of actually participating in the sector and trying to enjoy the gains of the sector without having to go down the capital intensive route of actually funding yourself. So I think the only three proxies for investment in the oil palm space at the current time in the Nigerian stock market are Presco, Okomu, and now LLX, which is relatively recent. I'd say there's some differences in the three companies. Okomu and Presco are long established companies, so I think they're safe and reliable as a form of dividend income and long-term income over an investment period. LLX is a much newer company, a much younger company. We started last year in the oil palm sector, so I think LLX is probably an investment opportunity from the point of view of long-term capital growth and not dividends, which Okomu would give you and Presco would give you at the present time.
And to add to that, why Edo State? Why not any other state?
Well, not say why not any other state, but why Edo State? Edo State has been very convenient from the point of view of just an investment destination. All our documentation has been processed pretty quickly and pretty efficiently. We are a diversified agribusiness group, and we've been looking at a variety of states in the recent past. But in terms of just efficiency, in terms of ease of doing business, and in terms of just making the path easy for the investment process, Edo State has been the best so far in terms of an environment for investment. But I'm speaking primarily from the point of view of LLH PLC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Modi. Thank you. Please, questions in the Q&A box. I keep seeing questions in the chat box. Please, in the Q&A box. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Temitope Fatunbi, Program Officer for IDH. He's representing Dr. Chris Okafor, the head of IDH Sustainable Trade Initiative.
Thank you.
IDH is one of the development partners that focuses on oil palm value chain. You support players in the value chain with help with grants and to help them scale up their operations. So what kind of support does IDH provide? What are the requirements and how can stakeholders access these funds? Even new stakeholders are looking to invest in the sector. How can they access these funds?
Thank you very much, Yewande. First, I would like to say that just like you have mentioned, IDH is a Dutch organization, and most of the fund for the organization is from the Dutch government and Bill and Melinda Gates. And essentially, as you have rightly mentioned, we co-finance private investors to implement field level activities. And we have three key objectives for any project at all that we are going to co-fund. The oil palm program is interested in looking at sustainable production of oil palm, forest and natural resource protection, and social inclusion of course, smallholders. So whatever project that an investor is planning should revolve around these three objectives. And we achieve these objectives by convening multi-stakeholder initiatives at state level to bring stakeholders together, not only in the oil palm value chain, but also, since we are looking at forest and natural resource protection, we also have stakeholders in the environment, in the Ministry of Environment, in the pro-environmental NGOs and all that. So we convene this multi-stakeholder platform to discuss issues and, of course, push forward and lobby for favorable policies for the sector. We are also involved in development of agreements with governments to have an enabling environment for production of oil palm. Back to talk about your question, I mentioned the fact that we could finance field level projects. And this is done by contacting private investors along the value chain. It could be a processor, input supplier, anyone.
Mr. Fatunbi. I think we've lost Mr. Fatunbi. Hopefully, it logs back in.
Hello, can you hear
Mr.
me?
Fatimi, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm
sorry
back.
about that.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so I was talking about business case for the companies and of course for the small holders. So that is very key in applying for the grant from IDH. So there must be that business case that, okay, whatever we are producing, we have secured market for it, which we ensure that we can constantly source raw materials from the smallholders that we are working with. So that is very essential. And of course, there's a proposal template that we always share with our implementing partners by the time they want to come into having business relationship with us in terms of confiding their project. Apart from the proposal they will have to develop, they will have to submit a copy of their certificate of registration, the company's audited report, and some other necessary documents to show that they are indeed a company. So these are some of the requirements for accessing the fund from IDH. And in addition to that, we have an arm in IDH which we call the Farm Fit Fund. It's a fund sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates to support smallholders. So what the Farm Fit Fund does is to de-risk investments at field level. Currently, IDH is in talks with CBN to create such a structure in Nigeria where smallholders can have access to such funds at a reasonable interest rate. So those are some of the things that we do at IDH. Thank you. I can't hear you, Andy. I can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fatimi.
Yeah.
So stakeholders can just reach out to IDH. Stakeholders in the value chain can reach out to IDH, and then you give them a template form for the proposal template, and they can access these loans. But is there any requirement that says, do they have to be impacting the smallholder farmers? Do they have to be milling? And what kind of percentage are we looking at?
Okay.
What do they have to bring into the table?
Yeah, thank you very much. So like I mentioned, what is very important here is that they must be involved in the value chain, and they must be able to prove that, okay, yes, we have there's something in it for us. We have a stake in it. Like you mentioned already, we are in talks with some of the notable private investors in Edo State. Currently, we are working in Edo State and Ondo State. We are discussing with some of them already. Some are at the stage of proposal development already. So what the investors needs to do is to approach IDH. Then we'll discuss what they would like to do. Then the proposal template can be shared with them then for them to actually put down what their project idea is. But in essence, those three objectives must be involved in the project, because those objectives form our KPIs, and we also form the KPIs for the company in implementing the project. Talking about what they have to bring to the table, the IDH oil palm program can fund up to 30% of the project, the small that grow project, whatever the company would like to do, up to 30%. And so the remaining 70% is not as if the company will bring it in cash, but it could be in kind. If you agree with me, there are some activities that the company might have been doing before they decide to go into this kind of project. So some of the staffings and the abilities that they have can come into play as part of their 70%, but we can fund up to 30%, which will be released to the company as agreed to in an MOU signed with them, and then they can go ahead to implement the program. Of course, they have to set KPIs as well, which will monitor as the project progresses. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fatimi.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, let's have the questions in the Q&A box. I see some questions in the chat. I won't be able to go through it. So please put it in the Q&A box. So we'll just go ahead and answer some of the questions we have. We have a lot of questions, actually. And I'll go ahead and read some, and hopefully some of the panelists can answer them for us. The first one is, do we have collaboration with NIFOR? Dr. Kwenebo, can you please put an email address in the chat box for people that want to get in contact with NIFOR? Thank you. So this is for Edo State. What is the state's plan to address the infrastructure deficit? For example, lack of access of roads to small and medium-sized plantations, which can impact efficient plantation management. This is from Victor Uwafo.
Please, can I respond to that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Yewande. I want to just commend Mrs. Aguele as well. I listened to her brilliant presentation. Now, speaking about what the state is doing to address the issues with infrastructure, we understand that infrastructure development is very key to agricultural activities. Even though the big players may be able to get the access road done, some of the smallholder farmers, it's a challenge. And if they have that issue, if they have issues with bringing their produce out of the farm, then it also falls short for their profits and all that. So as a state, we went a step further to see how we can access some funds that is meant for infrastructural development in the agri sector. One of which is the RAMP funds, which is Rural Access to Agricultural Marketing Program. We have actually gone so far into it. It's a World Bank intervention fund. We actually got a consultant who has done the enumeration of all our access roads in our local government and villages. We are actually in the middle stage of this program. We are hoping before the end of this year to early next year, the funds will be available. And it's to the tune of about $18 million US. So if that fund is available, Mr. Governor intends to apply it into infrastructural development, roads, access roads to our rural communities, farms, and so on, so that to boost the productivity by our farmers. So that's how far we have gone in terms of infrastructural development in the agri space.
Thank you very much, Mr. Debiri. Thank you. The next one is from Asore. Can you get a copy of the governor's speech? Please put your email address down. You definitely get that. And you get a summary of the webinar tomorrow morning, including the speech. Can we also have a list of links or links to the CBN intervention mentioned? So this is from Mrs. Njideka Nwabuko. Mrs. Njideka, I also want you to talk about some of the different segments in the value chain. So for smallholder farmers or millers, what funds can they access? What funds is available to them? When you answer the question, please.
Okay, thank you. The guidelines for various interventions we talked about, and I'll make them available through the host of this webinar. In addition, anybody wishing to access our interventions can stop by at development finance offices, which we have in all the state capitals. There in Edo, it is in Benin City. So you can get more information on the interventions the bank has. The NISA Microfinance Bank is also a channel for disbursing interventions. Their website is available. You can apply to NISA Microfinance Bank to access AGSMEs. That is the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme, which you can use for your oil palm activities, value chain activities. The maximum for AGSMEs is 10 million naira. So you can use that for nursery development, maintenance of plantation, and also for mill construction, mini and medium scale mill, as oil palm processing mill. So in addition to what we said earlier, for smallholder farmers, I'm very glad Mr. Nwabuko and Mr. Billy talked about their programs. We've worked in collaboration with oil palm majors to develop the outgrower scheme, which is what they are implementing. The idea behind that is that the smallholder farmers can access CBN's interventions through the anchor companies, that these are the oil palm majors. And then in addition to that, we are working to develop another funding structure, which will involve state government and indeed other critical stakeholders like the international development agencies. We've heard from IDH we're leveraging on their support to provide additional funding for smallholder farmers. Now, for the state government, we're looking at not just providing contiguous land, which will lower unit cost of production per hectare. We're also looking at the state government getting involved in land clearing to support the smallholder farmers. You know that when they do that, the cost per hectare will come down for the smallholder farmers. So these are avenues we're exploring to ensure more inclusion of smallholder farmers. Yes, indeed, other panelists discussed or talked about what the central bank is doing. And I'm glad we have, I would say for most of the panelists here, we've had some engagement or the other. The central bank is working at stakeholders' collaboration, particularly for the benefit of smallholder farmers, to ensure they are more included in oil palm development. Mr. Celestin talked about their numbers. Yes, indeed, for oil palm and indeed other crops, smallholder farmers cultivate about estimated 80%. So we see that their role is critical in objectives of achieving self-sufficiency in oil palm production. So CBN, like I said earlier, CBN is committed to this oil palm development, not just in Edo State, but indeed in the entire country, to take us back to where we used to be. We also heard from Ms. Wilma, who spoke passionately about the position of Nigeria in terms of global ranking in oil palm production. But I'll encourage all stakeholders to commit to the process. We'll surely get there. Yes, oil palm is the next big thing. We know how much we're expending on importation. It's about, in the past 5 years, I think we've spent about $400 million on oil palm importation, which we can produce here. And then even the job loss as a result of importation. So let's work towards taking Nigeria back to where it used to be. And the smallholder farmers particularly have a key role to play. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwabuku. Thank you. So the next question is for, this is from Ola Dodson of Pasino. In terms of investors outside the country, in what ways can we participate in the oil palm value chain? I think Mr. Kelvin Walby, can you answer that, and one of the private sectors, please?
Mr. Kelvin, I'm here. You were asking.
Right. Okay. In terms of investors outside the country, in what ways can they participate in the oil palm value chain? Can they invest in the value chain?
Okay. For us in Edo State, the foreign investors are also key to this process. I actually saw on the Q&A section, and one was asking, can a non-indigene participate in the oil palm value chain in Edo? Yes, the answer is yes. Most of the big players we have also in Edo State, some are foreign investors. And so we are open to both foreign and domestic investors. Existing investors, we are open to them also expanding their already existing investments. Part of our observation is, and I'll tell you about the smallholders. In terms of processing, the big players or foreign investors can also participate in terms of processing. Most of the smallholder farmers, part of what we have observed is that they want to be able to have their own mills. And that is another area which investors can come in. At the same time, most of them want to have good seedlings. NIFO spoke just now, Dr. Celestin talked about seedlings, and I can tell you that NIFO have one of the best seedlings as we speak right now, because just last week I took a trip to NIFO with some of my colleagues. Also, Wesco is there, Okomu is there. So for any player that wants to come in, like I said, Edo is open for business to everybody, not just the domestic players, but also to foreign investors. And if they want further information, we're always open to let them have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wabi. Can you also add the requirements? What are the list of requirements for land application?
Okay. To get land, I must say this before I start to talk about requirements. Lands are there are about, I would say there are about 4 ways you can actually have land acquisition. The first will be obviously we have the traditional land, as we call it down here. You also have the government land, which His Excellency just mentioned, that we are in the process of allocating about 100,000 hectares to would-be investors and existing investors. And also you have private ownership. So you have situations where you have, I would say, farm families that have huge expanse of land, and they want to be able to also give that out. Then you have the community. Communities are also entitled to their lands to be able to also give that out. So talking about the processing or process of acquisition of land, like I said, we have those 4 ways you can actually acquire land in Edo State. But in terms of now actually making sure that you document that land, I just mentioned that we have the geographical information system, which is a recent government parastatus that we have been able to enhance to ensure that giving out of certificate of occupancy is swiftly done. So the first thing will really be the application, and we will need to know what kind of land the investor is really interested in. So, and the hectare of the land. So for an investor that is looking for a very small land below 1,000 hectares, for example, for a smallholder farmers, the approach will be different. For an investor that is looking for 10,000 hectares, also, we'll have to look at the possibility of which of these ways that we would point the investor to. Once that is done, then we have not mentioned something which is very key. In terms of the processes of land, and which the Investment Promotion Office is also working with, is relationship in terms of the investor, the state, and the community. Most times we have observed that if the investor just goes straight to the community without allowing the state to be aware, there are issues that may come up later. And those issues sometimes are not good for the investor. So that's where you find out investors say they have challenges, or say, oh, we have a land, we have bought this land, but we can't even get it because there are some certain things that would have been done. So for us, really, we are coming up with the process to see that any land acquisition has all stakeholders fully involved. So tomorrow, nobody comes and start to give the investor issues, or the community starts to feel that they have been shortchanged. That is that. Also, as a state, we follow best practice guidelines. So for example, you want to get a land, we must have what we call the FPIC, free, prior, and informed consent. So we must be able to let the community know what this land is meant for and what the would-be investor intends to use it for. So I think I would stop there. But for further information, we can be reached to get the possible information that the investor would need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have another question from, the question is, we need to know the level of commitment of the oil palm majors to the oil palm agro scheme. I'm guessing this is for Presco and Okomu. Ella Lakes as well can add to that. This is about, I think Mr. Billy talked about the agro scheme.
Yes, this is Felix Mabuko. We've spoken about the smallholder and outgrower scheme today, what we are doing, what our vision for it. And first and foremost, let me re-emphasize here that the mindset of the oil palm majors from our discussions, and which we are engaging the CBN on, is to make this smallholder outgrower scheme very sustainable. It doesn't have to be a jump in and jump out activity. Why? Because as we push the oil palm development program in Nigeria to bring oil palm to where it should be, the oil palm majors are not the ones that will do it. They will do a bit of it, but most of it will be done through the smallholder and outgrower schemes. As a rough estimate will be to say that in future, we're looking at that the smallholder outgrower scheme should account for no less than 60% of the oil palm plantations in Nigeria. And then the majors and the medium scale players can then come in at that 40% level. That's what's reasonable. And so the investment first and foremost, the commitment first and foremost, is to work on this program and make it sustainable. And that's why we're saying that the structure to be put in place, we know that there are a lot of challenges there. They need a lot of support. They need the financial support. They need the technical support. They also need the training that comes with it, the extension services that needs to be provided. All this come together to play in order to ensure that this is going to be sustainable. We have also learned from the mistakes of some other countries and other places where this thing has happened and the kind of things that make this to fall apart. There's also the issue of when you get into these things, part of this scheme is that it should be such an open book because trust and loyalty is essential in the smallholder and outgrower scheme to play along with your off-taker and all that because there are investments from both sides. And so that's one example of the commitment that is being made here to ensure that as this thing progresses, that it leads into a point where people can point to the fact to say that one of the successes of the Nigerian oil palm development story is a success that's achieved in the smallholder and outgrower scheme. Then moving on from there is a practical actions that are now being taken. Billy Ganser of Okomu has enumerated the practical steps that have been taken. I've enumerated the mapping that is going on now. I've also mentioned that in River State, for instance, in another facility, we're already beginning to talk seriously with people who have got themselves together under the aegis of the Chamber of Commerce there to drive this. And we are going to play the off-taker role there. Right here in Edo State, I did mention that for now, we're feeding our mills from here, but in our long-term 10-year business plan that's drawn up, there is the establishment of more mills because we operate in 4 sites. So there's going to be mills outside of the Obaretin estate. One of the mills with the construction, the action will start at the end of 2021 so that it's ready by 2024, end of 2023, 2024. And the essence of this, we're already talking today with 2 persons from a particular domain in Abraka that have put themselves forward as very credible smallholders. And the idea is that these new mills are going to take those fruits. So the commitment is that first of all, more importantly, that we are investing our time to ensure that those who will come on board this smallholder agro scheme will find it a sustainable thing, that the investment that are put in there will yield the desired results. And then practically also to be in the forefront of playing the role of off-takers by these majors. Thank you.
Thank you. And that also means there are opportunities for more small producers to come into the value chain. So it's definitely a market one. There's an offtake for it.
Yes, indeed. Exactly what I said, that in the future, what we should be looking at is that the makeup of the oil palm industry, plantation-wise in Nigeria the pattern should be no less than 60% of smallholders and outgrowers, and the majors who are integrated can do the 40%. And that's where the program of today also is very apt, because we are looking at the value chain. Now, there are opportunities, great opportunities along the value chain of the oil palm sector. Now you have the pre-production activities, the production activities, the processing activities, the distribution, and then of course the retail. I know very well that part of the discussion in CBN, in terms of the facilities that they are putting on the table, in a couple of the meetings that we've had with CBN, is that there is fund for those if the outgrower small grower scheme grows and spreads across the oil palm belt, there is the opportunity that people can even come in along within the chain where they say, you know what, we are going to set up processing facility at this point and at that point to serve outgrowers that are in a particular region. That creates opportunity along the value chain for people who will come in to support this development by being millers, install their capacity. So the oil palm majors will take what they want to take, expand their processing capacity to be able to play the role of off-takers. But I want to say to the audience today that part of the thing that is happening in the Nigerian oil palm space, both in Edo State and outside of Edo State within the oil palm belt, is that CBN is also enabling that people can come in at the production part of the value chain, whether you come in as an association or you come in as a sole company, but that opportunity is there. And that's why it is important, the role that we are playing to ensure that the smallholder agro scheme in Nigeria is credible and sustainable. That's what's going to encourage people to come in and say, well, I see that this is thriving there. There are a lot of fruits in this region, so let's go and set up processing facilities there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wabuko. There's an additional question for you. How is pricing determined for palm oil in the local and international market? Thanks.
Pricing in this industry is market-driven, interaction of supply and demand. And within those segments of supply and demand, a lot of issues come in. We have spoken about importation, what our importation can, we have seen it all. We have seen the days when the importation was being abused. We've seen what is done to pricing. We have seen the days when the borders are locked, what it has done to pricing. That shows us clearly that pricing within this industry is market-based, at least for now. And if you remember that when Billy Answer was saying, he did mention something that's the big issue for producers. And I want to say to anybody that wants to come into this industry, the very big issue to be mindful of is to know how to control your costs. Because as long as price is market driven, the only way you will survive if prices crash for the time that it crashes is that your costs are under control. And when prices are moving northward, it also helps you to be able to recoup your investments in a much more profitable manner. So we don't have any price regulation for oil palm in the industry today. It's purely market driven and affected by both local and a little bit to some extent, international factors. It's affected by the exchange rate. It's affected by the demography, the increasing population. And if tomorrow the industrial base of Nigeria increases, then there'll be more demand for the products of this industry, and that also will play a part in price determination, in price movements. But of course, if we launch out and develop the oil palm sector the way that we want to develop it so that we have more plantations developed, more production facilities in place, then also that will also have an impact because it all helps in the interaction of the supply and demand factors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mabuko. Thank you. I have another question on the recording of this. Yes, you will receive this in your email tomorrow morning. Look out for it. We have someone from Sun that wants to talk. Mr. Lawal Ismail will give you 5 minutes from Sun Edo office. Are you there? Yeah.
Okay, so they don't give us chance.
It's my they talk to you now. Please fast to.
Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello.
We can hear
good
you.
Morning.
Good
we can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm speaking from Standards Organization of Nigeria, Edo State. Hello. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I go on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is a very good program. It's a very good program, and we're happy that you have come up with this program at this point in time. But what is important is that we need to standardize whatever we do. Standardization is key in this very particular program. And in that sense, we should be talking about the seed, the high yield seed of palm oil, the planting processes, harvesting processes. How do we standardize all these stages? And of course, the storage. So all these things has to be standardized. So I've not seen nobody is talking about standards. Nobody is talking about the quality of the palm oil. We also need to look at what is the standard of the oil production, looking with particular reference to the free fatty acid. Then we are talking about the financial institutions. Hello?
We can hear you. You can continue, Lawa.
Okay, good. So we have talked extensively about the financial institutions. For me, I want to discourage, I'm sorry, the commercial banks, because most times we are always after, of course, our own gain, which is the interest rate. And so we know what is in vogue in most of our commercial banks. So this government has to come in this regard. I will advise we can partner with BOI, Bank of Industry. I think that will be better, so that we will have a very reduced interest rate on whatever loan we collect from the financial institution. Then we also need to look at how best can we collaborate with international communities where we can get free loan or support from the international community that are in charge of agricultural produce, the agribusiness. So these are the good area for us to really harness. Then the federal government and the state government, of course, we have talked about them, but I think we still need to send delegates to the two arms, as in the state government and the federal government, so that we'll be able to have access to land at a very, if possible, free for agricultural produce and production, and more importantly, the tax or the revenue that will eventually be paid by the oil palm companies to the state and the federal government. If there's a way we can reduce the tax so that they'll be able to really use more of this money in production and profit Nigerians, employ people, and make the best quality oil we can think about at the international level. So we can as well export our oil palm from Nigeria to anywhere in the world, as long as we can meet the requirement of the standard. So that standard is the common language everybody speaks all over the world. If your product, irrespective of wherever it is coming from, whether Africa, even if it is the village, any village in Edo here, as long as the product can meet the requirement of the standard, it can go anywhere in the world. Then for the regulatory agencies, we really need to, in collaboration with NGOs like you, to organize a lot of awareness and sensitization program, not only just on the webinar, virtual meetings like this. We need to go to the grassroots. A lot of these farmers are in the villages, they are at the grassroots level, where they need awareness, they need sensitization. How do we support them so that they will move from their peasant farming to industrial mechanized, that is mechanized agriculture. So these are the areas I just want us to really look into. The standardization of this particular sector is key in this area. Let's not just look at the financial institutions. Everybody is, of course, coming into agriculture to make gains, just to harness and seize the opportunity to, improve their own investment. But we should look at what is the long-term effect on the economy of this nation. And that is the most important area that I'm speaking about. That standardization is key. whatever we need to key into, let's see how we meet the international best practices and be able to really showcase Nigeria at the international level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawal Ismail. Thank you. I appreciate it. Talking about training and awareness. Sorry?
If I
Yeah, I'm
make
hearing you.
Okay, Mr. Modi, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Right, I think it's important because there are two large companies here. There's Presco here and there's Okomu here. I think it's important to emphasize that there's a fairly standardized process and framework already and fairly standardized products in the market. So I think it would not be fair at all to assume that they're striving towards standardization in the Nigerian sector. It's been achieved and on global, I think, according to global standards. If anyone's been to the Okomu plantation or the Presco plantation, they're run according to global standards and global processes. So I think it's very, very important to emphasize that degree of sophistication has been achieved in Nigeria on a very large scale, industrially already, and they are milling and they're refining. So it's very important to, I think, make that point that our local processes are not necessarily as backward as one may think they are. Secondly, on the point of banks, and I think it's a very important point to understand that commercial banks are commercial institutions owned by thousands of public shareholders, run for the profits of their for the profit and the benefit of their shareholders. They're not in existence to give free money to anyone. They're in existence to run in a commercial framework in a government in a private sector environment to benefit their shareholders. So I think to castigate banks is not something we should go into or a road we should be going down. I understand that the CBN has a developmental financial remit, and it is fulfilling this by giving out loans at concessionary rates to members of the public and private sector players who have the scale to develop the economy. But we have to understand that there's a multiply effect that emanates from this. And yes, the CBN has a developmental remit. But I mean, that is not to say that banks have no part to play and banks do not or cannot participate in the sector profitably. I think it's very important to note that banks' high interest rates is not a question of banks profiteering. High interest rates are a consequence of high inflation. And if you can amend the macro situation, it means everybody else can participate in the oil palm sector. And I think it's important that we try to encourage all aspects of the financial system to participate in the oil palm sector. And the robustness of the oil palm sector will be exemplified by when private sector institutions start to participate from a financial perspective, and not just the CBN, which is a concessionary loan organization and has a developmental remit. And I think when we start to see commercial banks participating in a significant way, and companies in the financial sector, so equity, debt, MERS, there are a variety of financial instruments that can grow the sector. I think it will be a manifestation of the nature of how we are growing significantly and not a problem. So I just wanted to make that point. And I suspect that Mr. Nwabako and Okomu also want to make some points about the standardization of the process and where they are in that, because they're very well developed already. Thank you.
Yeah, Billy, do you want to say something? I say, Billy, you're muted.
I think you can go ahead and say it because we are all in the same market.
Yes.
And the market demands those standards anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thanks, Chuka, for making that point. We are in a business where standards are already set. Right from even the way you acquire your land and deal with your landowners, original landowners, even if you got land reserved by government for you, you still have to follow certain processes. Kelvin did mention, Mr. YB did mention while he was speaking, he mentioned something about FPIC, the free, prior and informed consent. It's a global standard on how you even begin to deal with your business from the land ownership and community relations point of view. In the whole essence of the of the environmental sustainability and this in domain. Standards are set. And in terms of the products that come out of this industry, you have what we call the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. That have set global standards as well. Those standards are applied in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and everywhere. And we are proud to say that in Nigeria, Ukomu Siat Nigeria Limited, our certified Presco, we just had another certification of our refinery. And the auditors are international auditors that come to assess you according to global standards. So the standards are there. And I also want to commend Edo State government. Talking about these standards, Edo State government is the state within the oil palm zone or within Nigeria that prioritize that as they drive the oil palm development program. Operators in it must also abide by these international standards because the view is that one day we start to export Nigerian palm oil. So we don't want our palm oil to get out of our shores and be rejected as inferior. So Edo State has committed to the RSPO program. Edo State works with people like Proforest. The IDH came in also on the back of all this to assist. Part of IDH's role in the oil palm program is also to assist the smallholders, the small farmers, to also meet the standards that are applicable in the industry as it relates to them. So there are standards. I think what we can do, we are happy to work with SON so that SON can understand the standards that we follow in this industry and then also and have that in their records. But standard-wise, the oil palm industry is standardized. And it's our vision that Nigerian oil palm, if we're able to drive the development I want to drive, when we begin to export out of these shores, will be acceptable. Another way that I would like to put this response is this. For instance, a company like Presco, we sell to the Nestle's of this world, to Promicida, to WAMCO, to all these international organizations. And we all know that they will not buy an ounce of their raw materials from any source that does not work according to international standards, because there must be traceability. So, and the reason we all do this business of commerce to the likes of PZ, etc., is because of the standard that is existing that's being followed. What we can do is that the standards change from time to time, and we are committed to be on top of it at every point in time. So there are standards exist and are being followed within the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wabuko. One of the other questions we have is, are there any mentorship or training programs available for youths or investors to learn from?
Yes, that can be arranged. That can be arranged on a case-by-case basis. And we have had that done with some people. I believe that Okomu will also have done that. Even with the Edo State government, we have had people sent across to us formally from Edo State government to say, okay, we want these people to come to Presco and be trained in this and that for a while, and that has been done. Then for some other private farmers, 2 weeks ago, I had a discussion with a farmer, and she said to me that their farm manager, they are looking after the oil palm, could he come over and take some training? And there's no problem about that. What we have done now is that we worked out a schedule. He can come over sometimes for a month. We work on one aspect of the oil palm management process. He goes back to the farm, and after a while, he comes again. So on a case-by-case basis, these things happen. And when I say that smallholders, one of the needs that they have, which will be part of the structure that's been put in place, is training. Because you can be their off-taker, but you want to make sure that they apply best practices. And the only way to apply best practices is that you avail them of the training from our personnel from time to time, visit their farms, bring their workers to come and work with us for a while, learn new techniques, and go back to their farms.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wabuko. Is there any mapping for the oil palm in Nigeria?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
I would like to answer that because I have some experience in it. There have been several mapping studies done from the point made, which is now no more, which is market access in the Niger Delta. They do a study back in 2016 to 2018, and they also did one for us as Okomu for all the farms which are within 50 kilometers from our area. We have PIND, which is a partnership initiative in the Niger Delta, which has also done a lot of studies on mapping studies. They have also done a big study on supply chain or the value chain activities in the Niger Delta. There's enough information from their website on that. And I would say that all those studies have not identified all the farmers, because I did meet farmers who have never had any chance of meeting any of these enumerators. But at least it's a beginning, and it helps to know what is available in the market and what can be done as interventions to help farmers improve on their production, and to help CBN, for example, in the way they are structuring their work plan. I do also know that IDH is also doing something similar in Edo and on those states, and Temi Tope would be able to provide more details on that. But yes, there is, but there should be something which is all inclusive, because even Edo State, I know they are also doing something, but there should be a way where we can get everything in one location, a sort of database which will help everybody when it comes to decision making. Because like Mr. Wabuko said, there's a lot of work that we have to do, preliminary work that we have to do to make the inclusion of smallholders and outgrowers sustainable. As we are now, we have farmers who are producing at very high cost of production, producing very poor yields, producing very poor quality fruits. But all those things will change when we go into a relationship with them, because it is in our own interest and their interest to get to the standard that we want. And we'll be able to impart that when we get to that level. I don't know whether Celestine wants to add something to it, but I have had experiences on that. But Celestine participated directly in the mapping activities himself.
Okay.
I mean,
well, Billy, thank you very much. Yes, Billy, thank you very much for this. Well, there's some information out there. It may not be comprehensive, but it's a starting point. And as you know, mapping can be a little difficult, can be a little tricky, and being able to get the full information for farmers can be difficult. But what we do have sometimes is some rough data we have. On our side, for instance, we keep data on farmers who bought seeds, and so we know try to know where to locate them. Then also the study, for instance, conducted by May recently, I think I was part of that study, try to identify farmers and also to geolocate them. And that information is available. There are mappings that have been done previously. From an old baseline we can start from. We can have a baseline and say go back to 2009, for instance, where we did a comprehensive study. I think we are just publishing that book now. That's also available. So those are some information that's available out there we can share from. But by and large, a very comprehensive mapping will need to be done across the country. In Edo State in particular, I think Edo State has tried to resume mapping, and that information is also available. And as Billy identified, some of the problems to the farmers is what quality of foods are they going to offer you, what quality of processing, and because the processing is not efficient, sometimes we even want to recommend that they sell such foods to processors that can provide more efficiency in terms of production. Again, that's an opportunity. Or by and large, there is some data that's available. That's what I can say. Thank you very much, Billy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Equinable. Sorry, we're running out of time, so we're going to finish with the questions. The last one, but not the least, if you have any questions, please email us. We can get you the answers, and you get the information on from our newsletter. The last question is for Mr. Kelvin Owabi. Is there any legislation under consideration to sustain ESIPO?
Yes, we do have the investment promotion bill, which is presently with the executive. Really, we had been on this for a while just to ensure that we can accommodate all stakeholders. So yes, we do. And hopefully before the end of this administration, I'm very certain that we would have passed that bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wabi. Can you give us more information on how potential investors can access, get information to ESIPO? Is there contact details?
Yes, we do. We have a website, which is invest.edostate.gov at edostate.gov.ng. Would make it available.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelvin. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
And if you don't mind, I would like to respond to one question. I don't remember it being taken. Do you mind?
No, Mr. Maboko, but you have 1 minute.
Okay, yes, it's a question. Someone mentioned that someone said good morning here and there, but he said, my question is, how can smallholders like us access to Kumu and Presco oil palm seedlings? I've tried several times, but met brick walls. So that's from Love and Abulele. I will just ask Love and Abulele to get in touch because there are no brick walls. We have sold 500,000 seedlings, and we sold it to everyone that has asked and reached us, including corporate bodies. So I do not understand what brick wall that is, but we have seedlings we sell without brick walls. So she can get in touch.
Mr. Wamboko, can you also please put an email address in the chat box?
Okay.
So
I will do now.
they can have your email address.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining and attending today. Would also like to thank ESIPO for partnering with us and trusting us with this event. You receive the recording for the webinar tomorrow morning in our newsletter. Please feel free to fill out the survey questions. We need your answers. We need the feedback. If you enjoyed it, good, bad, negative, we want to hear it. And thanks again. We hope everybody have a great week. We really appreciate your time and effort. Thank you. I want to thank all the panelists for joining us. Please, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yewande.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Meet all the panelists. Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Wilma, thank you. Mr. B, Mr. Mordi, Mr. Celestine, everybody, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
You have email addresses in the chat box.